A few weeks ago, the Positive Action Group held a meeting to discuss our failing policies on dealing with drugs. They invited speakers from the Transform Drug Policy Foundation and Anyone's Child, and I spoke to them for this evening's agenda. We'll hear shortly from Neil Woods, a former undercover police officer and representative of Anyone's Child, and Jane Slater, Chief Executive of Transform Drug Policy Foundation. But first, Ray Lakeman, whose sons tragically died from a drugs overdose.
I live on the Isle of Man. My sons were born and brought up on the Isle of Man. They spent all of their lives on the Isle of Man. They had wonderful lives on the Isle of Man. You couldn't have asked for a better way to bring up your children, a better world to bring up your children. It was wonderful. They did all kinds of things. But somehow they got involved in drugs. And my main message is, if it could happen to my children, it could happen to anybody's. And you know, I've got a great backstory about what my boys were like, and it needs to be told. You know, I hate the idea that my boys are considered by some people to be criminals, reprobates. That is not what my boys were. They were nothing like that. They had personalities. They were very influential on the island. They had a real huge effect on the things that they did. And people ignore that, and they seem to think, politicians seem to think that their children are above this. It won't happen to them. Well, I'm the contradiction to that. I thought it would never happen to my sons.
And of course, it's not just the politicians that think that. It's pretty much everybody who hasn't or isn't aware, perhaps, that their children are taking drugs. And most people on the Isle of Man don't know too much about the drug scene.
Yeah, that is quite true, and that is one of the sad things about it. You know, people are not aware of. I wasn't aware. I didn't think it could possibly happen. My children's upbringing, the way we brought them up, I didn't think it was possible that they could get involved in drugs, or even if they did, I didn't think it was anything serious, because I've learned retrospectively a lot of this. It's all around us. It is more common than we know. Families don't know, friends don't know. People turn around and say there isn't a drugs problem, but people should be locked up and this, that, and that. Their friends are using drugs. We have a real huge drugs problem. It should be an issue in the general election. It will be dismissed because we've been dismissing it for a long time here. They dismiss it in the UK.
Well, and that seems like a very good time to bring our two guests in from the UK. So, I mean, if we begin with you, tell us a little bit about the charity.
Yeah, well, Transform is a charity. I think, you know, to answer your question about what we're doing here is we hold these events all around the country. It is very much we're trying to start conversations amongst politicians, amongst journalists, amongst the general public to, I guess, you know, you can look at what's going on in society, and whichever indicator you look at our drugs policy by, I think you could argue it's failing. There's a very sort of lumpy rug out there of all the bereavements that are happening, the prison statistics, the misery. But I think, you know, we're trying to rip back that rug and really encourage an honest conversation and say we need to start talking about this. We can't have collective denial about this drugs problem for much longer. And I think, you know, that's really what we're trying to do here today, is to go, we have to accept that as a society we don't have the drugs issue under control, and there are alternatives out there that don't involve anything too dramatic or different, but we need to be having this honest conversation and recognising drug use is here and it's here to stay, but there has to be a better way of putting health and our children's safety at the heart of drug policies. And that is essentially the crux of our work, is what could we do differently? Can we think of a new policy beyond the drug war that we currently have, an enforcement-based approach, and put health at the core of future policies?
Because effectively drugs seem to be kind of taken over a bit from alcohol. I mean, certainly when I was growing up, everybody drank, probably far too much, but drugs was very much, something that would never have even been thought of, really. Whereas now, is it much more prevalent in young people to instead of to going for alcohol, they'll go for drugs instead, though?
Yeah, I think we're absolutely witnessing shifts in trends, but for us as well, I think we see a need to put regulations both on the illicit drugs, to put them in the legal market where we can control them, but also to look at how we can better control alcohol, which I think is causing big problems in our societies too. And I think we've made a lot of progress around tobacco control in recent years, and we now need to look at some of these regulations and put them to alcohol as well.
And I also think, Phil, that my son's problems originated with alcohol. I know one of them had a serious alcohol problem. It was tolerated by some of his families, the friends that they knew what was going on. They tolerated it, and that if there is ever a gateway drug, it's alcohol.
Yeah.
I think any police officer will tell you that they've had more problems with people on alcohol than any other drug. And of course we do know there's a wealth of evidence which actually says that alcohol is the most dangerous of the drugs. And yeah, I have heard there's a dramatic drop in footfall for the nighttime economy here. And of course, like that is happening in many places in Europe. That's because people are shifting to other drugs. Now, I'm a former police officer. I left many years ago to become an activist on this topic. But I can tell you from my policing experience that no police activity at all, no arrests or big seizures, we always have these news stories, don't we, of big seizures. None of that police activity has any impact at all on the availability of drugs, at all. It doesn't. Police activity does not reduce the size of the market. And in this growing market, demand will always be met. And it is a growing market.
And people might struggle to understand that. I mean, so obviously, if a large drugs seizure takes place, those drugs are no longer available. But what are you saying there?
So when you have this the news story that comes at least once a year of the record seizure of cocaine or whatever it is, whether it's been seized by Customs or the Royal Navy, that shipment, which is sent by transnational organised crime, when it is seized, another shipment is sent. So in other words, payment is not taken. They just write it off. They don't charge the people who are going to receive it. They just send it out again. So it's not preventing drugs reaching the market. They just send another consignment out.
So it's just
normal business
loss.
losses. Yeah, it's just normal business losses. And it's been that way in the large scale business for many years now. But that ethos of replacing a lost commodity has actually filtered down right to the lower end. So if someone orders drugs on the dark web, and that you have multiple dark web dealers or people on Telegram, people give the dealers marks out of 5 for the quality of the drugs, the speed, and the stealth. The stealth is one of the things that the dealers are given marks for. So people can look at the different dealers, the different wares that are available, and they'll look who had the best stealth, the best chance of it arriving. And in order to maintain that score of 5 out of 5 for stealth, a dealer will say, if someone says, well, my package hasn't arrived, it hasn't arrived, I've been waiting 2 weeks, it's not arrived, they'll say, don't worry, it's probably been seized, I'll send you another one, you'll get it. So all that police are doing, and it's like, let me put it this way, if you're to go to business school and learn about business and try and forge your space into a market and learn how to be an entrepreneur, one of the first lessons you'll have in business is how do you create market growth? Well, you create market growth by disrupting the market. You disrupt it. It creates opportunities by disruption. And this is what policing the drug markets is doing constantly. I'll give you an analogy which makes it a bit clearer. If you want to make a bush grow really big and strong in your garden with lots of flowers in the spring, you have to prune that bush. You prune it, it means it grows stronger and has more flora. That's like the drug market. We are constantly pruning the bush of drugs organised crime.
So, presumably, you're not just coming here to tell us that everything we're doing isn't working and there's no solution. There is a solution?
Well, there are solutions, because wherever in the world there is a health approach, there is always evidence that not only improves people's lives and reduces deaths, it also reduces crime and it also reduces the burden on policing. So it's good for everybody concerned. Now, it's quite exciting here and frustrating to come here to the Isle of Man because I'm friends with Ray, and I've been sharing a podium with him for many years now. I've been aware of what's been happening here, and it's impressive that the government has commissioned an evidence gathering exercise to work out what to do about this problem this growing problem. That's impressive to do that. It's also impressive to look at that evidence and come up with a strategic recommendation, which the government here has done. But what's frustrating, especially with the autonomy that this island has and the potential policy that could be brought in, that nothing's happened. And I do wonder, I mean, you'll be the expert, not me, so I'm asking you really, is that because an election's looming and people haven't got the courage to put it into place?
And that is a question that no doubt we'll be putting to some of the candidates. Maybe some of the candidates will be prepared to do that.
Phil, if I may come in here, the policy that Neil has suggested, it took 10 years of consultations, public consultations, workshops to come up with this policy. There are certain things that we know that the island cannot do because of it needs UK approval. We understand that. We also understand that there are financial issues involved in this. What we don't understand and what I don't accept living on the island is that they've agreed it took 10 years. In 2024 they presented this policy principles to Tynwald. They were agreed by Tynwald and nothing has been done about it. It's not exactly what I would want. I don't think it goes far enough. But if it's the best that we could do, I'm quite prepared to accept that. But the fact that they haven't acted on it, the fact that when I speak to the Minister of Home Affairs, she refuses to speak to me. When I've talked to the Chief Constable, they refuse. But they're finding money to prosecute things, prosecute people. They're very good. The police are very, very good at seizing things. They're very good at arresting people. We're told time and time again that there are gangs being arrested, this has been supplied around, that's been closed down. seizures. Every week there are seizures in the press. It's well known. But it hasn't stopped the demand, because there is a demand and there will always be a demand. And that is what we have to come to terms with. You may not like it. I don't like it. Drugs killed my boys. I'm making that very, very clear. My boys took drugs which killed them. All right? But what we're doing didn't stop that. We'll never stop it. It won't stop the demand. We have to find an alternative.
So Neil, then, I mean, I suppose the obvious question is, what specifically would you like to see candidates for the forthcoming election putting in their manifestos in relation to drugs?
Well, I speak on this topic all over the world. I speak to police officers and politicians, radio stations all over the place. And one thing I'm very pleased to be able to say is that I'm proud to be British, because whereas we are behind many countries in drug law reform, the drug law reforms that we have had have been led by policing. And it's actually and that's it's the only place in the world that that's the case. And we would have been much further if we'd followed some police leaders. So we need, and what I mean by that is 13 police forces in England and Wales have got a de facto decriminalisation scheme, which is led by police in spite of politics and not because of it. That's an example of where we could go. I've spoken to the Chief Constable today, Mr. Foster, and if the legislation and regulations were brought in, he would be very much in favour of a health-based approach if the expertise was there and if the systems were put in place. So the police support is there. The police want to save lives. It's their first duty. So I would challenge any politician to come up with the best designed decriminalisation system to fit this island's needs. And, you know, Jane, I'm sat next to, Jane's been here before to consult on this topic. We could come back. We could design that system for you, working with you as islanders. So I would challenge any would-be, anyone wanting to get elected, just commit to bringing the experts in and help you do this.
Jane, I mean, the charity that you run, I mean, how successful is it in lobbying elsewhere? I mean, obviously you're in the Isle of Man at the moment, but presumably you lobby.
Yeah, we've done expert consultancy all around the world, and I think almost anywhere where you can see progress and more progressive drug laws, Transform is often somewhere behind that. So I suppose most prominently, we've been very involved in any country that has moved on cannabis, which is a growing trend around the world. We've got Canada, Uruguay, Malta, Germany, all with legal markets for recreational cannabis now, as also 25 US states. Almost all of those have used our publications and policy proposals and had expert consultancy around how to do that. Where are the learnings? Where's the lessons? What's the evidence base around that? And so, but we've also been involved in doing work at a much more local level around, you know, recognising that Westminster legislation blocks legalisation currently. So that, but there are all sorts of things that can be done and are being done in pockets around the UK. And I guess that's where I would echo what Neil has said. And, you know, we have diversion or decriminalisation schemes in operation in many policing or many local authority areas across the UK. And this is something that there are better versions and worse versions of it, right? So we need to use that expertise and we believe we can come up with a better system. And, you know, a lot of the recommendations are there within the Liverpool John Moores paper, which is an excellent stepping stone by means to get some of these reforms. So we would absolutely support looking at getting a good system of decriminalisation on the island in the short term, and to explore piloting the recreational use of cannabis, which I think is also a realistic proposition for the coming years. Particularly if you look at coming together with some of the other Crown dependencies. We're doing some consultancy work on Jersey at the moment around recreational cannabis. And to me, there's a really interesting power block between the Crown dependencies to come together and challenge some of this at Westminster. And that really excites us as campaigners.
And does it, I mean, using the health approach as opposed to the enforcement approach, I mean, does this reduce the amount of drugs that are taken, or is it just about making sure that the drugs are taken safely?
Well, we know that punitive measures have no impact on drug consumption, and there is lots of evidence to say that. So, when you do hear police leaders celebrating increased seizures or increased arrests, this has not had an impact on the market. It's not had an impact on the levels of consumption. But harm reduction, the correct harm reduction advice and engagement with people, evidence shows it can reduce people's drug taking. So if you look at it in the simplest form, for example, where there has been drug checking at festivals, where people can take their drug to a checking facility, it's decriminalised because the police agree to it being decriminalised. It's been led by police in that way. People can get a small piece of their drug tested, so they found out exactly what's in it. But the key part of that engagement is that they then have at least 15 minutes with a drug treatment professional. And they can talk to that person about the level of drug use, the risks of that drug, what the adulterants are in it, what that means. And a lot of people will then say, well, I'm not going to take that anymore. They'll throw it in the bin. But significantly, a lot of people will reduce their intake. And there's a significant change in behaviour that saves lives, not just at that festival, but from there on afterwards, because that might be the only time someone actually gets some good advice about their drug taking. So the answer is that a harm reduction approach, a health-based approach, saves lives, keeps people informed, and can reduce problematic drug consumption.
I also have to say, Phil, that it is quite clear that people like taking drugs, and they don't see themselves as being criminals. The law makes them criminals, but these people and the people that are receiving the drugs that are on the island, and there are far more than we know. There are far more consumers, even allowing for police exaggeration of the value and the things that they've. There are far more. We all know. I know people who take drugs. You probably do. They might not admit it, but we all know them. It is all around us. So we can't ignore it. If we ignore it, it's not going to go away. We have to come up with a different approach. And that is, I'm not an advocate for drug use. Why should I be? Because it killed my sons. But I do know I know the grief that I go through every day. I know I live through it every day. I don't want other people to go through that. And I know there are other families on the island that are going through the same thing, because our approach does not work. We criminalise people. We make it really difficult for people to get help that they need. It's impossible.
Well, we're almost out of time. So, Jane, I wonder, obviously people listening to this programme may be affected by what they're hearing. And indeed, there may be some prospective politicians listening to the programme who want to know a bit more. How do they get find out more from your charity?
Oh, please, check out our website, which is www.transformdrugs.org, and Transform Drug Policy Foundation is where you can find us.
And presumably the website will have contact details. Well, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Where would be the best place for someone to go if they have concerns about drug taking themselves, or they want to discuss potential that their children are taking drugs?
Well, there is a drug treatment service provider on the island. I'm forgetting the name of them now, but I'm told they're very good. Motivate.
Is the main one that you can go to. There is a drugs and alcohol service which is, but you have to be referred to that. So Motivate is but most people are just lost about ways to progress this. They don't know that there's the help. Often they don't know that they need help. I didn't know that my sons needed help, and the help that I got when they found themselves in problems wasn't very efficient and effective, and that is something that needs to be addressed. Education needs to be addressed. You know, it's a huge issue. It really is. I'm really disappointed about the way that we approach drugs education on the island. We ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. Well,
or just say no.
Just say no.
You've heard the very powerful voice for change there from Anyone's Child representatives Neil Woods, Jane Slater and Ray Lakeman. So what do you think? Is the case for change overwhelming, and if so, why is government slow to act? Yesterday's Perspective programme presented some of the reasons for caution, but is it time to accept our approach to controlling recreational drugs is failing? Let me know your thoughts on the programme by contacting Phil Gaughan at manxradio.com, and please get in touch if you have any ideas for future shows. Don't forget this programme is available as a podcast. For now, I'm Phil Gaughan. Gormaios and Geisach Rom. Thanks for listening.